This video is about the intervention plan to combat the social cause of underage drinking in Australia. This presentation was prepared for Associate Professor Maria Rossetti and it was created by Keogh-Byrne. Thank you. The report contains a downstream, innovative and ethical intervention plan targeting underage alcohol consumption in Australia. Underage alcohol consumption in Australia is of great threat to the current youth and generations to come, due to long-standing norms surrounding the Act. The report and its contents were commissioned in the hope to reduce underage alcohol consumption and the threats of death and injury that come with it. A scoping study containing 25 sources relating to underage alcohol consumption was thoroughly analysed. From this analysis, a broad description of the social cause was constructed to state what the social cause was. Relevant statistics were used to show the seriousness of the problem as well. Finally, from the analysis, one major key finding was that parents and caregivers being the main contributor to the act of underage alcohol consumption. And one major key gap was the clarity of parental link to underage drinking in current advertisement. The specific target market for the intervention plan to modify the behaviour of underage alcohol drinking was by targeting parents in mid to low socio-economical areas with children aged 12 to 7. Intervention aims were discussed and the main aim was to reduce the number of underage drinkers. Next, potential partners and important stakeholders were addressed. The intervention plan was constructed to be a single-phase plan. So using the 4 Ps, product, price, place and promotion to offer greater insight into how the intervention plan will work. A mock-up advertisement in the form of a radio advert was constructed to portray the intentions of the intervention plan. Evaluations and strategies were addressed to discover whether or not the campaign was successful. And finally, ethical considerations and potential unintended consequences were discussed, as well as planned contingencies and the benefits of the intervention plan. Here is the table of contents for the report. The purpose of the report is to create an intervention plan to combat underage drinking in Australia and the culture around alcohol consumption by targeting the parents and caregivers of those underage. The report is limited to the social cause to modify underage alcohol consumption. Throughout the report, peer-reviewed articles and government-funded websites are used to establish a legitimate background for the social cause and the intervention plan. The report contains the findings from a scoping study, and the intervention plan is made up of aims, potential partners and stakeholders, product, price, place and promotion strategies, a creative strategy in the form of a radio script, and finally, evaluation strategies and any ethical considerations. Australia's ongoing issue with underage drinking continues to put lives at risk. According to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, about 2 in 5 people aged 14 years or older drank at least once in the last 12 months, in a pattern that placed them at risk of alcohol-related injury from a single drinking occasion. National Health and Medical Research Councils state that parents' attitudes towards alcohol consumption greatly affects their children's attitudes towards it as well. These attitudes leading to 3 major causes of death of Australian teens: injury, homicide and suicide. The social cause targeting parents and caregivers to change their attitudes and behaviour towards alcohol consumption in front of their children has the potential to modify behaviour of underage drinking. These attitudes are handed down from generation to generation. So by modifying the current generation's attitude, the next may be able to overcome underage drinking. After an analysis of the scoping report, these were the key findings. Parents and caregivers being the main contributors to the act of underage alcohol consumption. Social and subjective norms are heavily involved in underage drinking. Parents and caregivers are responsible for the norms surrounding alcohol consumption. A cycle of generational norms being passed down. Parents' positive or negative attitudes towards alcohol have a direct link to that of the attitude of their children. Also, from the analysis of the Scope report, the gaps found were the links between the association with socio-economical and demographical geographical subgroups in drinking behavior, and one last gap was the clarity of parental link to underage drinking in current advertisement. Here is a conceptual model that was used to design the intervention plan. The conceptual framework used the theory of planned behavior to outline how much effect parents have on their children's behavior. This especially in regards to alcohol consumption. The theory of planned behavior was used as it was found to be the most used and most appropriate when applied to underage drinking from previous literature. The framework implies that a parent's attitudes, normative beliefs, and perceived control affects their intentions, and finally their behavior, this being the theory of planned behavior. Then, the behavior of the parent involved in alcohol consumption then influences their child's attitudes, and so on. Generally, only subjective norms are used in the theory of planned behavior. However, social norms was added as a literature review found that social norms are as, or if not as important, as subjective norms. Subjective norms being the perceived social pressure to behave in a certain manner, and social norms being the behavior that is socially accepted. By incorporating social as well as subjective, a desired behavior change has a high potential. Here is the target market for the intervention plan. The target market for the intervention plan to modify the behavior of underage alcoholic drinking is by targeting parents in mid to low socio-economical areas with children aged 12 to 17. Although the ideal outcome is to modify the behavior of all underage drinkers from all socio-economic areas, mid to low was chosen to be the main focus due to literature findings that these areas had the highest rates of underage drinking. Justification for the target market. Parents of children aged 12 to 17 were chosen due to this age group being most involved in underage alcohol consumption. And mid to low socioeconomic chosen as it was found to have the highest adult drinking rate. The aim of the intervention plan is to reduce the number of those under the legal age of drinking. It is to reduce the amount of alcohol consumed by those underage, to dissolve current norms while creating new norms, to shine a light on parental influence on underage behavior, and finally to reduce the number of fatalities and injuries induced by alcohol consumption for those under 18 years of age. It is important to establish potential partners and important stakeholders in any marketing campaign, as it could greatly affect the successfulness of the campaign. Potential partners identified for this campaign is the Australian Government, State Health Services, sporting clubs, the Drink Wise Australia campaign, and the World Health Organization. Important stakeholders to consider are parents, those under the age of 18, alcohol consumers, and any political bodies. When evaluating a product being a good or service, it is important to interpretate it on three levels. The core level, which is the benefit of the product, which in this case is negative attitudes towards alcohol consumption in front of children, and also change in norms surrounding alcohol. The next level is the actual product. The actual product can be seen as a tangible good or service. For the intervention plan, the actual product is modifying parents' behaviors of consuming alcohol in front of their children. The final level is the augmented product. The augmented product is best defined as extras to the actual product. And in this case, the augmented product is websites and hotlines that are informative and to those targeted, and that also double as helplines to those needed, and also professional counselors. Pricing strategy is made up of two different types of costs, monetary and non-monetary. The monetary costs of a good and service associate with adopting the desired behavior, whereas non-monetary are intangible but real and maybe even more significant. Due to the intervention plan focusing its marketing on media such as television, internet, and radio, the only monetary cost for the target market would be counseling. Changing the behavior has a potential to cause psychological harm if the consumers have a strong bond or addiction with alcohol. A way to overcome this pricing strategy would be to highlight the monetary rewards gained through not consuming alcohol in front of children. That is, parents will be potentially saving money on reduced alcohol consumption. Other non-monetary costs include time and also effort. For play strategy, it is important to be able to reach the parents at their most vulnerable time, and that is when they're with their kids. The targeting times for advertisement on different media are as follows. For the internet, sponsored content will run on different websites and platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Courier Mail, among other news websites. For television, advertisements will run from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. These times were specifically chosen as this is when parents are watching TV with their kids around. For radio, it is 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. These two time slots were chosen because these are the times when parents are either heading to work or driving their kids to school. Also, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. when parents are heading home from work. Promotions are used to create and generate customer awareness. The purpose of a promotion is to present information to customers and others, to increase demand, and to differentiate a product. The promotion methods for this intervention plan are as follows. Direct promotion of behavior change, content that evokes maternal instincts, advertisements involving both children and adults, and also subtle adverts that are cost and time effective. An example of a subtle advert would be what you can see in the bottom right hand corner. A simple warning, your kids are watching. The following audio is an example of the type of radio advertisement that would run with the campaign. Hey Dad, can I please have a beer?
Of course not, son. How come you want one?
Well, I just finished mowing the lawns, and every time you finish the lawns you have a beer.
Well, for starters, you're not old enough for a beer, son. Secondly, I only have a beer after mowing the lawns because that's what your pop did.
Even though you may not be directly letting them drink, they are still picking up your bad habits. Be mindful of alcohol consumptions. Your kids are watching. To determine whether or not the intervention plan has worked, the following strategies will be used 1 year after the commencement of the intervention plan. Using the help of the Australian Government as well as state teaching services, anonymous surveys will be made available to chosen schools in mid to low economic areas to cross-analyse the percentage of those underage drinkers compared to the prior year. Comparing alcohol-induced injury and death rates of people aged under 18 to the previous year. And finally, media statistic tracking, which will be used to determine how many have viewed the campaign and what the total reach of the campaign was. When creating an intervention plan, it is important to take in ethical considerations for the plan to be successful. Ethical considerations can be seen as barriers, constraints, or limitations that have the potential to affect the intervention plan. For the intervention plan, the ethical considerations were advertisements both adult and child friendly, perceptions of societal and subjective norms surrounding alcohol consumption, parents not wanting to believe they play a part in the role of their children's actions, Potential unwanted consequences are as follows. Australians depicting themselves as drunks or alcoholics because it's not true. Parents thinking they have failed as a parent. This is something we definitely do not want. Planned contingencies are actions or tools used to combat any unintended consequences. The potential for unintended consequences does offer some resistance towards the intervention plan. However, the benefits of the intervention plan outweigh any potential consequences. The planned contingencies are as follows. Websites and hotlines that offer information regarding parental influence on children. The benefits of the intervention plan are reduced alcohol consumption of under 18-year-olds, reduced number of alcohol-induced injuries or death of anyone under 18 years of age, changing norms surrounding alcohol consumption, and finally, passing down new and appropriate attitudes towards alcohol consumption. Underage drinking in Australia is an ever-growing threat to the nation's youth and the generations to come. Due to this, an intervention plan was constructed. A scoping study on the Australian underage drinking was analysed to find relevant theories and facts that offer credibility to the intervention plan. Key findings from the scoping study were also found to be in favour of parental influence in underage alcohol consumption. The intervention plan will be a marketing campaign targeting parents in mid to low socio-economical areas with children aged 12 to 17. The main theme of the campaign being, warning, your kids are watching. This will hopefully help parents realise their potential influences on their children and help them strive to be more appropriate role models. Here is a reference list containing all the things referenced throughout the presentation. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the presentation. If you have any inquiries or questions, please do not hesitate to comment and I'll get right back to you. Once again, thank you.